Hey guys, hey, continuing on with the VMP kind of fanzine project that we've been thinking about, I'm now going to start kind of going through the magazine page by page, just kind of doing some things and updating content and having a little bit of fun. We actually did this tutorial in class, and I'm going to be repeating this tutorial for you guys. And just to kind of back up for a second, again, just to really emphasize this importance of having a project folder and being extremely organized with all of your stuff. My project folder is down here. It's called VMP-pub. Yours is maybe called, I don't know, Fanzine or Project 5 or 6 or, whatever you need it to be, but there needs to be a folder holding everything. Within my project folder, I've got an assets folder. I've actually even got a reserved place to hold all of your future student work. Videos, like I have a project folder in a very similar way that you guys all do. And I also have an assets folder. So opening this up, there are all of the original VMP pages that we did some editing to. And down here, I found this really fun, I'm just going to open it up. I really like this photograph of Pee Wee Herman. To me, it's really clear. It's in focus. It kind of shows him in the 80s looking, like Pee Wee Herman, as we would expect. But the other thing that I like about this image is that it has this white background that I can get rid of or delete or do whatever, okay, with. So, so yeah, I'm going to be working with this image, okay? So let's kind of pause for a second and let's take a look at let's go back to the InDesign document. Okay. And by the way, I just kind of want to walk you guys through. I did a little bit of kind of work between the last video and this one. And you can kind of see like, the layout is there. So if I scroll out or zoom out, you can kind of see that the layout of a lot of the content is kind of, it's ready to accept the information. I feel like the real truth is, you guys, you can do a lot of design work without even having the content. That's the beauty of lorem ipsum. It's the beauty of using the rectangle frame tool and the text tool and thinking about hyphenation and typography and scale. A lot of the work is actually done. Now it's kind of fun, right? And there's going to be some tuning along the way too, because I know that things aren't perfect. And I know that I'll be changing this, but at least I have a general blueprint for how I want things to look and proceed. And so I just want to walk through a few of these pages. Like there's one thing that's bothering me right off the bat. I think you guys have heard me talk about this before, but leading lines. I might change the size of this larger H1 text. But what's really bothering me right now is that the bottom of these letter forms, the leading line, things aren't lining up. And so I might make an adjustment when I'm ready to plug in content where this quote maybe rises a little bit. But I'm about to place an image too. And obviously I don't want to obscure important parts of that image, i.e. Pee-wee's face, right? And so I am going to have to be making some adjustments as I'm doing this, but at least I have a beginning. So there's that. Those are things that you can just kind of pay attention to. Leading lines are really important. And it's happening again here too. So this one is too far below, and this one is too high up. Okay. So things aren't quite syncing up. And I still have my system, to kind of reference and take a look at. And I still have my precedent. Okay. And sometimes the precedent isn't quite right. Sometimes maybe your design idea will work out better than the original precedent. Maybe you're a better designer. I mean, you guys, design is intuitive. Design is something, inside of you kind of saying this is the way it should be. Okay. So listen to that part of you. Um, I've got this pretty well set up. I kind of simplified my table of contents, which I'm happy with. I also kind of deviated from the precedent here where I have my lorem and like whatever's happening here, it's flush to the left. And then I moved this a little bit further to the left. Why did I do that? Well, because I was listening to my systemic sort of grid underneath. But it's interesting because I was following sort of like a rhythm also, as far as like, for example, look at this lorem, it's pushed over a half inch from this grid. Well, I did the same thing here. And you guys, that's just my design intuition talking to me, okay? Um, this is pretty straight up, just a real beautiful two-column layout. I might adjust some of the kerning, at some point. Um, I really like the layout here, real nice and clear. Okay, pretty good. I'm also following the grid gorgeously. That just makes sense. There's really not a whole lot to this page. Remember, this is the spread, with the long image and the long hand-drawn typography. I did deviate from the placement of this text. I think I did it because I was, again, trying to follow that regimented system below, for consistency. And so we'll see, because my hand-drawn or whatever typography might look quite different from this. So I really don't know, but at least I have a beginning. Okay. Um, I think this was a pretty cut and dry page. Um, and I have a, a, a placeholder for an image or a sketch to maybe place down here. So I'm going to be looking for some real fun, kind of like Pee Wee Herman, like, I don't know, like, you guys know about Conky the robot. I was thinking I could put a robot here in this lower right-hand corner, but who knows? Still looking for the interviews and all that good stuff. But that's the layout that I've got so far. Yeah. So, and it's sort of mimicking and learning from the precedent for sure. And it's really not reinventing the wheel. I mean, this is like a standard thing that a lot of publication magazine designers or folks might use. We're not reinventing the wheel here. We're just we're following suit regarding a formula or a precedent that just happens to work really well so that folks can read the interview successfully. Okay. Um, this is going to be a fun one, with the overlay, in Photoshop and then the typography on top. Actually, I did not finish the typography there, so that's something that I'll have to come back to. Whoops. But this is looking really nice. And then the last image is just one full spread illustration that I'm sure you guys will have a lot of fun with. Um, and I also like the reason why I wanted to come back to this document was to remind you, first of all, to show you how the blueprint went, the remaining blueprint, but also I wanted to remind you that we have this bleed, right? And so that is a quarter of an inch or a half inch total that is added to the width and the height, okay? So if we go to document setup, currently it's 8 by 10.5, but in fact, that Peewee image that I'm looking at, because there's a bleed associated with it, I'm thinking that we're going to have to crop that image at 8.5 by 11. And again, just to kind of reiterate how I got to that math, the page is 8 by 10.5, but the bleed is a quarter inch on each side, okay, which totals a half inch more for the width and the height, okay? So quarter inch here, and a quarter inch on the bottom equals a half inch. Quarter inch here and a quarter inch there on the right-hand side equals an additional half inch regarding the width. So just to, make sure we're on the same page, I'll be cropping Pee-wee at 8.5 by 11, okay? So now I can go back to my assets folder. There's my original Peewee JPEG. And by the way, when you're finding these assets online, as you know, they need to be good quality assets, not low quality assets. Okay, so I'm gonna have to change my ratio to 8.5 by 11. Okay. And it looks like I'm guessing it's this size because I already did the work last time. So it's lining up perfectly, if you guys can see that. So I actually don't need to crop mine because it's already been cropped. Okay. So I'm going to cancel out of that, but you guys might need to crop yours so that it fits appropriately and just kind of test it, just for fun. You guys, let's just drop that JPEG in here and see what happens. So I'm going to remove uh, the typography. I'm going to unlock the graphics layer. I'm going to select the placeholder that we have, and I'm going to hit Command D. And then I'm going to navigate to the current Pee-wee image, which is not the final image, but it's currently cropped as it should be. In other words, the same size. So that's funny. It's not looking right. Well, the way InDesign works, remember, you can gently select the window and then come up here to Object, Fit Content Proportionally, and look at that. So that's how it's going to look on my cover as it is, because I'm going to be treating it a little bit further. But if I wanted to even bring in some typography, like I might run into some issues. So we'll see. We'll have to kind of, you know, treat things a little bit, okay? We'll get there, guys. Um, but it looks really cool, like if you ask me, for a real nice kind of clear, cover for this publication. So let's go back to Photoshop. And one thing we want to do is we want to make this image black and white. And you can do that by coming up here to Image, and then you go to Mode, excuse me, Adjustments, and then go to black and white. When you engage black and white, there's this auto function, which can be really handy. And if you click that, it'll just add a little bit of contrast to the image, okay? And so I want my Pee-wee to be black and white on the cover of this publication. And I'll tell you why here in a bit. So if I go back, I wonder, hmm, here we go. There's my black and white version. And then I've got these different color versions. I'm just kind of giving myself a refresh on all this business. So I have a color version and a black and white version. I don't want to overwrite any of my files, okay? But just for the record, I have an original Pee-wee file here. I have a color Pee-wee file, and then I have a black and white Pee-wee file up here, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this Pee-wee color, okay? I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to call it dash demo. I'm going to right click it and I'm going to open that in Photoshop. And the next thing I want to do is I want to use the magic wand tool and I want to erase this white background, okay? And so if I just select that white background and then hit delete, now it's gray. That's a little bit weird. Actually, I'm doing that because I wanted to show you guys before you make modifications to a JPEG document, you have to unlock this layer, okay? So now if I come over here and click with the magic wand tool and then hit delete, now the alpha channel has been revealed. I'm going to do the same thing down here, okay? And then deselect. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to come over here because I want to give it that sort of half-tone feel, okay? But I want to have some options to work with, okay, folks? So what I'm going to do is if you go over to Filter and then Pixelate and then Color Halftone, you can basically apply the halftone effect at some different sort of rates. And so I'm going to start with a max radius of 4. Okay. And I'm going to save as. I'm going to call it half tone 4. And I'm going to call it demo. Right. So I've got that saved now. But I'm going to go back and I'm going to grab the color Pee-wee again because I want to do this 2 more times. Okay. A little bit of redundancy, but I think I've mentioned that, like oftentimes there is redundancy associated with design. So now I'm going to unlock the layer again, use the magic wand tool, delete the background, and then I'm going to come up here to filter, pixelate, color halftone, and I want this to be 8 this time. And it's going to give me a slightly different effect. Whoops. And it didn't do it because I had this area selected. Let's try that one more time, guys. Filter, pixelate, color halftone. Okay, there we go. That looks different, right? I kind of like it, but it's definitely a little bit different. So I'm gonna go File, Save As, and instead of it saying halftone 4 demo, I want it to say halftone 8 demo. So I'm creating some options for myself. Okay, close that out. Okay, one more time, Pee-wee Color, Adobe Photoshop, unlock it, use the magic wand tool and get rid of the background, right? Deselect this time, come up here to filter, go to pixelate, color halftone, and this time I'm going to make it 16. Oh my gosh, that's not going to work. I know I'm not going to want to use that one. I just know that's a little bit too much. So I'm going to back up. I'm going to try something different. What about pixelate, halftone? So we did 4, we did 8. I almost kind of want to try 2. We'll try that. It won't go down to 2, unfortunately. So 4 is the lowest. So 4, 8. Let's try 10. Actually, that's okay. It's not bad. So now I'm going to save as. And I'm just going to call this one, again, halftone dash 10 demo. Cool. Okay. And, the vision that I have in my head is I want to have this black kind of graphic on top of Pee-wee. Okay, guys? And so in order for that to happen, I actually need to set up an Illustrator file. All right. And I actually did it right here. I'm going to open this one up just to kind of take a look. One second, software is firing up. It's kind of cool, huh? Okay, so it looks to me like, first of all, I can just start over with all this stuff. I don't need any of that, right? So I'm just gonna select all and I'm gonna delete. Okay. And now I'm going to place that black and white Pee-wee that we made, right? Go to my project folder. This is also, again, reinforcing how important it is to have a project folder with everything in one spot because I know exactly where to find my stuff. Okay. So there is my black and white Pee-wee that I need. And look at that. And just to kind of remind you, remember we were talking about an artboard. So let's go back. I'm going to open up this JPEG. So image size. Let's do it this way. File, document setup. So again, the page size is 8 by 10.5, but I need an artboard that's a little bit larger in both Photoshop and Illustrator, or an aspect ratio that's a little bit bigger. Because it's not really the artboard size, it's actually more important that the aspect ratio is what it needs to be. And that means that the artboard or aspect ratio of the Photoshop or Illustrator file needs to be 8.5 by 11. So if I go back to Illustrator, I'm curious. Let's check this out. If I click on my artboard tool, well, it's actually a lot larger than 8.5 by 11. And the reason being is because the aspect ratio is the same, guys. Okay. So for example, if I promise you, watch this. If I come over here and say 8.5 by 11, look, that sheet of paper is much smaller. And I'll even give it a little bit of color so that we can kind of see it properly, just for fun. Now, if I put this on top of the Peewee image and then hold shift with my pinky, look at this. It's exactly the same. So you guys, this illustrates this whole or shows this aspect ratio business. This is 8.5 by 11, and this is the same aspect ratio. But if we look at how with the actual size of this image, it's 24 by 50.52 by like 31.75. So it doesn't quite add up, but the aspect ratio is the same. Okay. So that being said, all I want is a beautiful black kind of graphic of Pee-wee, like his hair, his eyes, his eyebrows, like the main things. Okay. So I'm going to do a trace. I know you guys, we love to do traces in these classes. So drop down, I'm going to do a three color trace and see how my luck is there. And so it's a three color trace of a black and white image. So in other words, I'm going to get three grayscales popping out. Okay. And I know, guys, it doesn't really look like much, but in combination with the photograph, I think this is going to be really interesting. Okay. So, but first I need to kind of split things up. And you can kind of see what I was doing earlier. So you know the drill. Select the image, expand, object, ungroup all. I want to take all of the black fill information. I'm going to come up here to select same fill, move it to the black layer. Now I'm going to take all the white fill information, move it down to that layer, lock it, make it go away. Now I'm going to take all the gray information, select same fill color. Let's drop it down to this layer, lock it, make it go away. So now I have just this beautiful sort of silhouette, like black silhouette of Pee Wee Herman, and it's the exact aspect ratio that we need. The big thing that Pee Wee Herman is really famous for, his red bow tie. I mean, a number of things, if you ask me. Of course, I'm sort of like a fan. But I'm going to zoom into this tie. And I'm going to add some color to his tie with Illustrator. And I'm going to do it on this layer called red-BT. Okay, I definitely need the color though. So I need to find my default swatch for art and illustration. I'm just going to use the standard red here. And I'm going to grab the pen tool. And actually, I think I'm going to grab the curvature tool. All right. And in a very kind of loose way, this is fun, right? I love this kind of stuff. It doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, this is just a graphic, guys, okay? Now I need to, midway, I need to make that transparent so I can see what's going on, right? So I don't know if you caught what I just did, but I just, midstream, I just went up and changed the opacity to 50% so I can see what's going on. I'll switch it back when I'm done because I want, you know, the bow tie to be a real nice kind of bright red. And I got to close the loop. Okay. So bring this back up to 100. Cool. Save it. And now I'm going to export a PNG because I want to overlay. I mean, I could put it in Photoshop. I mean, I know I could do it that way. Let's just look at some of these that were already done. I'm kind of curious. So this was from the previous demo. That's 16. Remember, that was a little bit too much. And then 8. We did 8 and 4. That one's pretty cool too. I like that. Okay. So, but somehow we're going to have to composite these things. So I have an idea. I wonder if we can just, first of all, we need to swap out this image. So I'm going to hit Command D. And I'm going to grab the demo. I think I like the fine line Pee-wee one like that. I think that's my preferred graphic to work with. Okay, and you can kind of see, look at Pee-wee is definitely bleeding over the edge of the paper. Okay. We're not losing any of his hair, thankfully, or anything too important. It's just a little bit of his gray suit and a little bit of his hand. Um, but I think it's going to work just fine. Now, the beauty of this is that I believe that we cropped this. So I just made a copy of that. I don't know if you guys just saw. And I can put this right on top. Okay. So there's actually two peewees right on top of each other right now. And I'm going to switch this peewee with, and if I just place, I could place the Illustrator file. I'll be really honest, guys. So let's try that. But I'm going to show you something, a problem with Illustrator when you're placing. Object, fit content proportionally. It's a little bit off. And the reason being is because Illustrator is not respecting the boundaries right now. Okay. So we can try it again. I think there might be a workaround if I remember correctly. Show import options. And then let's go to the bow tie. Here we go. Options. Bounding box. Visible layers only. So this is pretty cool. I wonder if this will fix the problem. It's still not quite lining up. Okay. But that's okay. Don't worry. File, export as, use artboards, PNG because we want it to be clear in the background, export. We want it to be 300 PPI because we want good quality and we definitely want the transparent background. Now let's try again. So instead of placing the Illustrator file, now we're going to place the PNG. There we go. So because the aspect ratio and everything was perfect, look at that. Look at the way that really made the image kind of pop. Isn't that cool? And we've got the bow tie in there. I mean, this is a really, I think this is a fun image. So we got Pee-wee in there. Now what's next? Now we need to maybe lock the graphics layer. Okay. Now let's bring typography back and let's see what we can do here. So it makes sense for this to be Pee-wee Herman or Paul Rubens, but he's, right now he's Pee-wee Herman, because like that's his alter ego. I might make an executive decision here and say Pee-wee will be up top. And it looks like we'll have to extend this out, of course, and look at that. It kind of almost works perfectly. And then Herman will be down here. Now, obviously, there's some problems with the legibility because it's just not reading down here. I mean, we could break some rules. We like to break rules, but in this circumstance, I'm not really comfortable doing that. Hmm. This is the part where we were kind of thinking through things. Remember, we had the blueprint, but we were going to change things around a little bit. And so right now, honestly, I figure we could put like an underlying sort of mask or like kind of like semi-transparent white box underneath the text to add some contrast to make it legible. But then that's going to cover up all the real beautiful hard work we did on Pee-wee here. My alternate suggestion is that we type Pee-wee here, and then it says Herman there. And so actually it's going to read horizontally. So that's, guys, that's just my design intuition speaking to me, and I don't even know if it'll work, but let's try it. So I'm going to take that box and I'm going to rotate it 90. And I'm also going to decrease the size of the text. It doesn't need to be that large. For the sake of consistency, actually, and let's turn on our system too, just to see what's going on. Huh, that fits really nice, actually. Right now it's flush left or flush to the top, but we want it to flush the opposite direction. Okay. I also want the bottom of this text to basically be talking to this margin, the same way this text is talking to the margin. Okay. Hmm. And I am going to sacrifice one of these quotes. I do want to have one of these quotes down here, I believe. Hmm. And then I was just kind of having a little bit of fun earlier, and I was thinking about famous Pee Wee Herman quotes. So I did a search. And I know you are, but what am I? I'm a loner dotty, not a rebel. Or a rebel. Large Marge sent me. So these are just like classic. And I think the real classic one is I'm a loner dotty, a rebel, which is one of my personal favorites. Legibility is a little bit odd. Uh, and I'm going to modify this a little bit. I also want the text to be a little larger. Having a little bit of fun, guys. So in this circumstance, I'm a loner Dottie. I want to keep Dottie on the line up here because I don't want to separate that statement. I'm okay with a rebel, dot, 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 a rebel being down on the bottom, but I want Dottie to be at the top. And so there's this thing called hyphenation. And so, yeah, it still looks a little funny to me. So I'm going to have to extend this out a little bit and then do this. I'm going to make the graphic go away temporarily because I'm trying to also sort of talk to this system, the grid. To me, that's important. And that's also the power of these layers. Look at this. I can move things around. I'm running into an issue here with legibility, guys. So I'm going to have to break an egg. So I'm going to have to deviate from my system just a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to make my system go away. And the other thing is that, there could be, I don't know, I kind of want something in the background. Like I don't know if I'm comfortable with it just being so plain. So I wonder if there's a real fun kind of background that we can find. Hmm. I was looking for like a sky or like a graphic. Like actually that's pretty good with Mr. Kite. If you guys are familiar with Mr. Kite. That's pretty good actually. See, but I want something real simple that's not going to take away. Maybe just a sky period. Maybe it doesn't have to be a Pee-wee sky, right? Or Pee-wee pattern. Let's try that. I'm just gonna go with sky. I think I like this one right there. But I need to find something that's really good quality. So I'm going to go with large. I'm going to go with this one. I like that blue. I'm just going on a hunch. I think that'll work. So I need to make sure to put this in its proper place. So teaching, archive, courses, typography. Okay. VMP pub, assets. And instead of this having a crazy name, I want it to have a proper name. I'm just going to call it Blue Sky. Okay, now instead of placing this in InDesign, actually, I was thinking I could place it in the Photoshop file. Okay. And so I'm going to come over here to links to make sure I'm targeting the right PSD file. So it's Peewee 4 demo PSD. Okay. So Peewee 4 demo, I think that's it. Okay. So I'm going to open this up again. I'm going to create a layer on the bottom. I'm going to call it sky file, place linked. There's my blue sky JPEG. Move it up a little bit. And I'm also going to, I don't want it to distort. There we go. See, I don't want it to be a complicated background. It can be super clear and simple, okay? And it's on a separate layer, so I can always just make it go away if I don't like it. So save it. Now let's go back to InDesign. And I wonder, look, this is basically saying, hey, something happened, so we can update that file. And now we have this blue background, okay? Um, it's a little too blue for me. So you guys, I'm just making some adjustments. I'm just kind of following my nose here. So I'm going to go back to Photoshop. I'm actually going to select that layer, and then I'm going to reduce the opacity to like 25%. Save it. Go back to InDesign, relink it. So I've just got a little bit of nice color in the background now. Not a whole lot, not too much, but enough just to give it some texture and color. And I think the blue complements the red real nicely too. The only thing that I might do, so this legibility is kind of, it's a little difficult with the dot pattern. So I feel like this could be a little bit larger. So we have to maybe mess with that just a little bit. But maybe that works out just fine. Wait a second. I'm going to remove the graphic layer for a second, bring back my system. You can see the way things are kind of snapping. And see, I'm bringing this down a little bit at a time because I want this to be close to that margin again, guys. I mean, I respect margins a lot. That beautiful magenta line, that's real nice. It's a leading line. It's something I can work with. Now we did, unfortunately, we kind of, yeah, we're running into that legibility issue again. So we might have to, I don't know, make a sacrifice. This to me, I think could be tuned a little bit more. Like that to me is still kind of like an unknown. And because we're not done with this project, I'll probably continue to think about that. Okay. I am feeling really confident though about Pee Wee and Herman reading the way it is because the contrast is really strong on his suit. I mean, everything just seems to be working really nicely. Oops. Hit Command 0. Good. Okay. All right, I'm going to Command save it for now, guys. And that's the first page. And so again, I just want to remind you, you don't have to do it the way exactly the way that I did it. This is your project. You have a different image, you have a different subject, you have different quotes, you have different assets to work from. So you need to do it your way, okay? Um, but if you want, I wanted to show you guys that halftone technique because that's essentially roughly kind of what they're doing on the original, okay? All right, thanks, guys.